Hello again, and welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we are moving on up. We are going to be talking about the extreme wealth that has fallen upon this podcast, and I'm excited to get to it. Of course, joining me, as always, my billionaire brother from another mother and your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I really wish right now, with all the dog hair I have everywhere, like every day when I go to sleep and get up, that I could just hit a switch and have my bed get incinerated and then replaced with a brand new bed.
That seems awfully wasteful.
Super Those things came out like super folded and correct. Like, I have so many questions about that, but that's okay. We can get into that. Let me go ahead and throw it back to you. The man, the myth, the ass scratcher himself. It is Miles.
Maybe we can find a wealthy podcast that would just let us take over for a week while they're on vacation so that, we too can have our bed incinerators, as you put it.
Well, then we'd have some podcasting pirates come on and probably steal the show at one point.
Only because our podcast is homosexual. We are talking about The Mansion Family today, which originally aired all the way back in January 23rd of the year 2000. The chalkboard in the year 2000. Man, what a time that was. I liked it when... I liked it when it was 2001 and he still kept doing that bit. But they did it for a while there in 98, 99. That was fun.
Yeah.
The chalkboard gag on this one is the class clown is not a paid position. I bet you several of the people that work at The Simpsons would disagree. But
and yourself, maybe?
And possibly myself. I was actually a pretty goody two-shoes up until a point, and then I broke out. But I was definitely a nerdy just teacher's pet up until probably, I don't know, 5th grade, somewhere in there.
I just meant with your current life status of being a living, breathing class clown that sometimes gets paid
occasionally.
Yeah.
those are the days, man. Get myself a Five Guys every once in a while on those days. That's a Bort posting reference.
Ooh.
We also get the Freaky Friday couch gag on this one, which is kind of fun. Basically, the adults are children and the children are adults. I do like that young Homer has a full head of hair.
Yeah.
That was neat. And he reaches for the remote from Lisa, who smacks him away, much like her father would.
There you go.
And we kick off our showcase tonight with the city of Springfield celebrating excellence amongst its citizens with the Springfield Pride Awards, which at first, when I the very first thing you see is a billboard that says Springfield Pride Awards. I think it says "Please No Rioting."
Mm-hmm.
But right off the bat, I'm like, oh, crazy! It's June, and sometimes our show has a way of just getting really our football episode happened to fall on the Super Bowl. I mean, we totally planned that 4.5 years ago or whatever. No, we've been very fortunate with a lot of the ways that certain events just line up, and that's been cool. And when I first saw this, I was like, holy shit, we're going to see a Pride Award show. I was thinking gay pride. But that is not the case here. I just feel like this was a time, I'm thinking maybe in the year 2000. I know I was personally ignorant to the concept, but now I'm starting to wonder, was that not a thing in 2000? Or I don't know. But in this case, they were just proud of themselves as citizens of Springfield and the various things that they did.
Yeah, it was almost a little off-putting, and you felt like maybe the name should be changed almost, but it caught me off guard because I'm like, yeah, it's going to be Simpsonified, but it had nothing to do with the LGBTQ community. I messed that up. I apologize.
Just because I Googled it real quick. Pride is an acronym, the Pride that we know it today, the Pride Month that we're actively celebrating as we record this. Is an acronym for Personal Rights and Defense in Education. The organization was actually formed in LA back in 1966.
Oh, wow.
It was founded by Steve Ginsburg, and it says here from its very inception, it was more radical than the pre-1960s homosexual rights groups, which were deferential. So that's good to know. Pride is older than The Simpsons by far, but I just don't think it was necessarily as common of a term, something that everybody would understand. And as we discussed in our Bo Burnham episode too, in the branding aspect, at this point, it's been exploited. There's so many companies that are just like putting their rainbow logo on their logo, and they have absolutely no interest.
Hawthorne wipes.
And like, I feel like somebody might call us out and be like, didn't you put a rainbow across your logo? And yes, we absolutely did. But 100% of the very few number of sales we got off of that logo went to like LGBT QIA plus charities. I fumbled it, but I didn't break it like you did. Anyway, we're here to talk about The Simpsons. But
in the Simpsons way, though, they're talking about pride as like the town's blowing smoke up their own ass. So we'll go with that for this.
Yeah, definitely a different connotation. But it is a huge event in Springfield because it's actually
every townsperson's there, just like
literally everybody. And they even have not only Kent Brockman, but pop singer Britney Spears is hosting this show. Which in the year 2000, Britney Spears was like the icon. Like she was like probably the number one pop star in the world at that time.
The thing that's weird about this too is she says at one point our town. So is she from Springfield?
She's a Springfield native.
Yeah, like that's the way it kind of played this up.
That's an interesting idea. This is where I do need to go ahead and get to our commentary for today's episode. I did watch the commentary track, which featured Donick Cary, this is kind of a weird lineup for the commentary track. I'll just tell you, for a couple of reasons. A couple of people were no longer with the show when they made this. I think it was, again, this is at the time that the Simpsons movie is being made. So a lot of times they're just like, oh, hey, remember when you used to work on the show? Like, maybe you should come talk about that. And they would just come and join into these commentaries because they like needed bodies. I do feel, but also because of the unique pairing of people, I also think it made for a more entertaining commentary, especially compared to last week's episode where I don't recall having a whole lot to say.
Yeah, it adds an interesting dynamic to the commentary then too when they haven't been there for a while. And it would be funny if it was like, hey, remember how we fired you? But like, I doubt that's ever the case in real life.
Yeah, right. But yeah, this one is Donick Cary, and this was talking about the first episode after he had left the show. So he was involved at the time. Also had Tim Long, Ron Hauge, Mike Scully, the showrunner, Pete Michaels, who had moved to Family Guy at this point, but had previously worked on the show. George Meyer was there. Mike Pelcino, and this was actually the first episode that he fully directed. He had previously assisted in the directing department or worked on the show in that manner, but this was his first time actually directing. And I will say a lot of the interesting parts of this commentary track, were him talking about like the differences in responsibilities as they step up from the position he was to actually being the director of the show, and just how much work and effort it took. But it was very interesting, of course. And this episode was written by John Swartzwelder, who the Simpsons staff themselves even joked on this one. I believe they said that he could not be here because he had to be at home grilling a steak, which is just such like Ron Swanson energy all the way. Which I'm pretty sure that character is based on John Swartzwelder. Excuse me.
That's like really interesting that they dive deep into the behind the scenes, like in the directing world, to talk about all that too. That would have been a very interesting conversation to hear.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting commentary track. I very much enjoyed it, but I will say this, and this is not a judgment statement at all, but I don't know if you've seen the Britney Spears documentary that has come out recently.
No, I haven't. I saw an article about it, so I was like, oh, I bet that's pretty interesting.
Highly recommend, to be honest. It is very interesting, but it legitimately made me personally feel very guilty about many of the jokes that I have put at Britney's expense, just because really spoiler alert, minorly, but I'm just going to synopsis this Britney Spears documentary. Like, we as a society made Britney crazy. And then, and really like the way that like Hollywood and like that the music industry works, but we as a people push that, especially our American culture in this at this point in that time and still today. But we as a society made Britney Spears crazy. Britney acted crazy. We made fun of Britney for being crazy. And then Britney has actually been in like a really terrible position since that time, like where she's literally legally not in control of her own life, even though she's now out of the spotlight and seemingly a pretty normal individual that has like some mental illness in her past. But it's a tragic story, frankly. And they started this commentary by making fun of Britney, which would have been very popular to do at the time. But I want to give props to Mike Scully, who actually stood up against everybody else on the commentary track and essentially said that Britney was like as sweet as could be and like down to earth and like super as down as earth as could be, but like super sweet, very nice. And like, privately, like while they were like working, like Britney was actually like very kind to Mike Scully's children and like just like this really sweet person, but her people were fucking nuts and fucking assholes. And like his example was like, for instance, they were working with Britney and just doing some various takes and running some various lines. And like one of the things that Mike Scully like pitched off the like cuff was how about you say I'm teenage songbird Britney Spears, and like that's just like a silly, like there's not even really any like heavy connotation to that. She's just calling herself a songbird, but literally mid recording her people like stepped in and were like, no, she can't do that, we don't want her doing anything that wasn't scripted.
Wow. Okay.
So I recommend the documentary. I understand Britney Spears is a fun punchline, especially in like 2008 was the highlight of that. But it's actually a really tragic story, and I just thought it was kind of neat that at this time in the year 2000, that Mike Scully like saw that and was basically calling it out.
Man, and honestly, like I thought from a voice acting standpoint, she did a really good job in this episode. I like she's been in other things like How I Met Your Mother and things like that where I was like, not really anything spectacular, but I thought she did a really, really good job with the voice acting in this. It sounded like she was excited to do it. Yeah,
I agreed. And just thought that was an interesting aside, but we'll get a little less serious and start getting back to the funnies here.
Yeah, we had 2.5 hours to get serious.
I know, man. Bo broke me. I'm sorry. It is what it is. We do have some very funny moments in this episode here because Britney is getting all the cheers. I do like the point when Kemp Brockman's like, I'm Kemp Brockman, along with Britney Spears.
Yeah! I like when they start alternating the words back and forth in like the opening speech where at one point Britney's doing all the talking and pauses for Kent to go, the.
And then Homer is actually, because everybody from Springfield is out there, Homer and the kids are in the audience, and Homer is like super confident that he's going to win a prize this year. Yeah. But Marge is a little bit worried because there's a lot of pre-award buzz around Lenny. And I love you see him like with his fingers like doing the cross thing as he's very focused and intent on like to the evening's events.
He's got that Oscar look going on.
And right off the bat, Homer gets excited when Kent starts to do the first award.
Our first Springfield Pride Award goes to a local legend, a man who brings laughter and joy to the children of Springfield.
Homer's like, is it me?
With his big red nose and his baggy pants.
And Homer actually stands up at this point.
Krusty the Clown.
And I love, like, Krusty gets up and is like, hey, but, like, Homer is immediately, like, shocked and appalled. Like, what do you mean it's Krusty? How could that be Krusty? Yeah. It's so clearly me.
When he was described perfectly as Krusty the Clown.
Homer had already started to walk up to the stage, and when he, like, realizes he has to turn around, like, within, like, a split second, just barely walks off stage.
He doesn't even walk. He just stands up.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He barely, yeah, that's right. He just goes to sit back down. Like they just shifted the frame over so he couldn't see his seat, essentially. And he turns around and basically there's a man there, and he's like, "Who are you?"
Seat filler.
And then the dude starts to put the moves on Marge.
Like puts his arm around her, basically.
So Homer just like sadly sits in the aisle. We cut to basically see that pretty much everybody in the town of Springfield has won some sort of an award, except for Homer, who is like outright moping at this time. Like, everyone gets an award but me.
I can't help it if I donate the most blood. Oh.
Marge passes out.
Oh.
She like slumps out, and Homer, instead of helping his wife, tries to take her award, but that rouses her awake, and she like actually slaps him.
No, I like that.
Oh, why won't anyone give me an award?
You won a Grammy.
I mean, an award that's worth winning. And we get this beautiful moment here where it actually pauses, and we get some like basically a disclaimer running across the bottom of the screen. Award show style music. Oh, sorry, that's you. Legal disclaimer. Mr. Simpson's opinions does not reflect those of the producers, who don't consider the Grammy an award at all.
Get him, guys.
But this is where Brittany announces that, she actually says, Kent, in today's youth-obsessed culture, we sometimes forget that the older people are still alive. And that's where we see Abe actually, like, arguing with that seat filler.
I told you.
Well, sorry.
And that's why our final award honors a man who's lived in Springfield for 108 years. Our oldest resident, Cornelius Chapman.
We get this like story about Cornelius Chapman, whose life began in a log cabin in Springfield. He actually introduced the toothbrush to the town. As like this is playing, he was also for years Springfield's only basketball player. But he still managed to entertain the crowd, which we see like one guy trying to play it against an entire team, and it's just going terribly.
Passes the ball and it just rolls on the floor.
This is such a short shoulder joke, and I love it. Brittany explains that in the market crash of 1929, he helped people jump out of the windows to avoid disgrace. So he's like basically like the jumper version of Dr. Kevorkian.
Why do they have footage of this?
And he's on there talking, for whatever reason we can hear him on this film.
We have a talkie.
You're doing the right thing. Oh, how'd you go? My, you're a big one. No turning back now. And he pushes a fat guy out the window.
And then Mo sees it off a tall building. That's a great way to do it.
And it's just so quick and dark, but we cut right back to the award. And in 1935, our honoree took a bullet for Huey Long.
That's my favorite one.
Basically, he does take a bullet for Huey Long, but a bunch of other bullets already got by.
He gets shot 4 or 5 times, and then Cornelius jumps on the last one being fired.
But we see Cornelius Chapman come up to take his award, and he literally dies as Britney Spears kisses him on the cheek. It makes him have a heart attack. And I love Kent Brockman is like, I guess we should have expected that. Or how did we not see that coming?
Again, as Miles said earlier, she was like the it person at this time. So that would have been a huge deal.
Huge. I honestly can't even think of somebody now, just because the music industry and the way we absorb content as a society has changed so much. I don't really feel like we have the mega star like that as much. Now we have internet sensations and things of that where, people get a huge following online, but it's different than it used to be.
Yeah.
But I do like the gag we get here where they're trying to basically find a replacement for the award since Chapman has died. So they start with anyone over 60, and we see a bunch of people stand up, including Grandpa. And then they go to 70, and a bunch of people sit down, including Grandpa. And then they call 80, and Grandpa stands back up. He clearly doesn't even have any idea what's happening. But throughout this entire time, Homer is also among the people standing up. It gets to over 100, and finally Abe and Homer sit down, and we're left with only one, Mr. Burns, as the oldest living man in the town of Springfield. And Burns is actually pretty ecstatic to take his award.
This is all so sudden.
And Brittany actually goes to do the same thing and give that she did with Cornelius and just give a very innocent kiss on the cheek. But Mr. Burns dives out of the way.
Don't give me the kiss of death, you Black Widow.
Kent Brockman pries the award from Chapman's hand and is like, boy, he didn't want to let that one go.
And he gets a laugh out of that.
He does. Good joke.
See, I don't have a speech prepared, but abracadabra.
He pulls out Chapman's speech from his dead body.
Thank you all so much. I love Springfield from cuddliest infants.
He's grimacing through this. It's painful for him to say.
Puppies, patriotism, bluebirds. Pfft, I'm not reading this drivel. This speech is over.
So Mr. Burns just literally crumples the speech, walks off stage, takes his award, and does in fact get an applause, though, is the thing. The awards have all been given out, and Homer is just pretty pissed off that he didn't win something, so he decides to take the giant statue of the miniature statues that they give out as an award, but one that's bigger than he is.
But Marge comments that it's just part of the set, so I don't think it was an actual. I think it was probably because the arm falls off as he's carrying it, so it's probably some cardboard giant cutout or something.
Yeah, that's fair. But he is doing his best effort not to walk away empty-handed.
Unlike the statue, who's empty-handed.
We cut to the next day where we see Burns reflecting on the previous night's events.
Now that I'm the town's oldest man, I'm starting to realize I'm not a young man anymore. I'll have to start taking better care of myself. I haven't seen a medicino checkup in ages.
Sir, you deserve the finest doctors in the world. I'm taking you to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota.
Very well, but I'll need someone to watch my house. Who's that fellow who always screws up and creates havoc?
Homer Simpson, sir? And he actually points to Homer on the monitor, who is, as he is doing that, he has a saw at his safety console.
Yes, the way I see it, he's due for a good performance.
I like the idea that Burns is, calculating when Homer's due for a good run.
I mean, he was a softball manager there for one episode, so that's something you do where it's no, I got a good feeling about this pitcher. He's going to hit for a home run every time he's up. Bit, so
but yeah.
He's due.
That's funny. So Burns decides that he's going to head to the Mayo Clinic, and he instructs, he's giving Marge the rundown on what to do. And he's like, if the house catches fire, call this number. And Marge is like, the fire department?
Yes, they're new, but they're good.
That doesn't make any sense, but I fucking love it.
Again, it's something. There's something about being older and seeing Mr. Burns used to irritate me so much, but he's one of my favorite characters now. Just listening to all his lines.
I was going to say, I know he's one that probably more than any episodes that we do with Mr. Burns, I think we do more script reading than any other. For one, just because you really like doing his voice. And for two, because he's so well written that it would take longer to try to explain and recap his lines than it does to say his lines. Yeah,
just the way they write for him, just so it's completely different from any other character.
100% agreed. Yeah, definitely. But we basically see Marge is telling and assuring Smithers and Burns that the mansion is going to be well cared for. But as soon as they take off in a taxi, which they point out in the commentary, why is a billionaire driving a taxi? But it is what it is. We cut inside and see Marge kind of just horrified, but probably not surprised that Homer is already wearing Burns' clothes. He's got a smoking jacket and top hat. And I think him and Bart are both sliding down the banisters.
It's just Homer at this point.
Okay. But yeah, he's not able to stop, and he smacks right into a painting on the wall where he's basically, he breaks through, and he's now broken this, who knows how much painting. And that's when Smithers actually pops in to get something forgot, and Homer just kind of is like, and gets him a thumbs up. Yeah. I will point out that was a very quick first act, but I do believe it was just to get the motion of events going. It only was 5 minutes and 17 seconds long, but we still have a lot of show to go. And again, this was just kind of how do we put the Simpsons into this situation where we can get them out to international waters?
I feel like this first act, at least, like getting into the plot of them house sitting, made a lot more sense than some of the stuff in the past where it's just some random event that gets them to go this way. Not that it wasn't a random event at the beginning, but like at least it felt like it connected a little bit better from the first act to the second act.
I feel like that's a Schwartzwelder thing for what it's worth, but because we have been talking a lot lately about how it does seem like the first act is almost just like doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get back to the beginning of our second act, and we see that there really are a lot of perks to being a billionaire. For instance, Marge notices that the master bedroom at the Burns mansion is bigger than the entire size of the Simpsons house. Homer is demonstrating the auto bed maker, as you already described earlier. Instead of just making the bed, it just drops the old bed into an incinerator and then pops out a brand new, fully made bed. Which I love. Homer is like, ooh, wasteful and practical.
Then is this where we get the auto dresser after that?
Which is like a cool idea, but yeah, like you like just cringe when you see it because you're just like, oh my god, Homer is nowhere near the same size as Mr. Burns. This is not going to go well. And of
it
course,
goes great.
You hear him like screaming in pain, basically, as he's being grinded through whatever gears are operating this thing.
But he comes out with the tux on.
He does come out fully clothed, looking sharp and ready to go.
It's all ripped, and he's got like burned, or it looks like he's been in a scuffle. Let's say that.
Yeah, that's exactly what he looks like.
Scuffle and a kerfuffle.
He got in a kerfuffle with somebody. We do get some cool shots here as Bart is sneaking around the hallways of the mansion. We see some of the paintings that are on the Burns wall, which one of my favorites is we get like the famous dogs playing poker painting, but Mr. Burns is also at the table. Yep. And then we also get a callback all the way to an early season. I want to say like season 3. I should have probably looked that up. But it's the painting that Marge made of him that made him look very
naked,
weak, essentially. Well, yeah, naked and also just like weak, which he was not a fan of. And
there was a flower guarding his nether region, so you couldn't see it. And it's weird that he's not a fan of it, but it's still hung up.
Yeah, that's true. And that episode was Brush with Greatness, for what it's worth.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's some podcast that can help with that.
Bart is actually looking behind these paintings, and it turns out he's in fact looking for a safe. And then he finds one and knows how to crack it with ease. Like it doesn't even take him but like maybe 4 to 10 seconds tops. Unfortunately, though, he was not prepared for the guard. It was like one of those guards that you would see at the in like England guarding the castle. I don't know, wherever the queen lives. Where does she live? Like it's not like a castle. It's
Buckingham Palace.
It's a palace. There you go. It's a palace. Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those types of guards just like crunched up inside this safe.
But he talks.
He does. He tells Bart off, who like quickly like slams the door in fear.
It's one of the man. I think that they could have used Bart in Army of the Dead. Honestly, like with how fast he is at cracking that safe.
Okay, so I fell asleep watching that movie the other night, which I was enjoying it. I just was really tired, so I haven't finished that one yet.
Oh,
but I knew safe cracking was part of it. I'm at the part where they're in the casino at this point.
All right.
So you didn't spoil anything. Don't worry.
There's a safe, Miles.
Son of a bitch, Richie. No, I'm not even gonna watch. We see even Lisa is very impressed. She has Maggie with her, and she's in Burns's library, and he has every single one of the Nancy Drew books, including the controversial Clue in the Clock. We see her flip. We see her flip through it for a second, yeah. And then she makes that comment. So good. We see Bart racing a golf cart through the halls, and she's being chased by Lisa, who is on horseback, and they are knocking all sorts of valuable looking things around. And then, of course, because, parenting is important, Homer is trying to chase down his kids, I assume to reprimand them, but he decided to drive on a riding lawnmower. So it sure looks like he's just playing along.
Bart and Lisa are like being historical figures or whatnot and screaming their names, and then Homer comes in behind them going, "I'm drunk."
Yeah, that's it. We cut to Burns and Smithers, who are looking quite peaceful because they have no idea how terrible their house condition is in. But we see that Burns is in the waiting room, and we see the Pope and Fidel Castro, and a doctor is telling, I want to say, the Pope that it's nothing serious, just lay off the chili and you should be fine. And we see Fidel Castro is just like snickering right next to him.
Don't you laugh, Fidel. I've been in the car with you.
And that's when we cut to Mr. Burns, who is busy filling out the forms, which I think is funny because it would absolutely be Smithers doing this for him.
Yeah. Let's see. Social security number. Not. 2. Damn Roosevelt.
This is my favorite line right here. Mr. Burns lists the cause of death. Cause of parents' death, excuse me.
Cause of parents' death got in my way.
See, like, this is an example of, like, you can't just describe Burns' line because, like, even the way of the use of not instead of zero is, like, just brilliant.
It's so Burnsian.
And, yeah, the idea that to do 2 is, damn, Roosevelt. Such funny decisions.
It's one of those things where, like, in the moment, the first time you see it, you honestly think they're going to go with 1 at the end. But, like, that's the difference between The Simpsons at the time and other shows is they throw that last second.
The 2 is like the perfect twist.
Yeah, and that's the thing that really makes it funny. Like the not's funny, and you're like, okay, it's gonna be a it's a 2. Oh, and it's because of Roosevelt. That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Because Burns is old.
And he's very wealthy, as we continue to demonstrate with the Simpsons enjoying his home. They're sitting at his dinner table, which could easily fit like a banquet. Like it looks like a buffet table. Like if you were to go to like the fanciest buffet you've ever been to, that would be the size of the thing with all the food on it. And Lisa is upset because she's yelling to her mom that Bart's making faces at me, but she has to look through a pair of opera glasses to tell. And even she is like, I think.
Look how loud I have to yell.
Homer's enjoying that aspect of things. He can be as loud as he wants to, but Marge is wondering, it seems a little elaborate for Sloppy Joe's. I know what the other 11 forks are for, but what do I do with this one? And she's looking at her silverware, very confused, and holding a very long and thin fork.
Why, Marge, I believe you're supposed to scratch your ass with it.
Homer, watch your language. Ooh, that's a lifesaver.
I love that she knew what all the 11 forks are for, except the last one.
Yeah. She did go to etiquette school. After dinner, we see that the family is now in the drawing room, and Bart is actually trying to light a cigar, but Marge snatches it away, saying that cigars are only for rich people and comedy legends. She said like Bill Crosby or David Letterman. Yeah, that mispronouncing Crosby and Letterman. She also accuses Homer of breaking into Burns's liquor cabinet, and
he's like, "Did you Jimmy open Burns's liquor cabinet?"
And it deflects. Jimmy is such an ugly word, unless you're talking about Jimmy Smits.
Oh, yeah.
But like Homer is not only like drinking the brandy, he's like basically doing that episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where like they are like using their hands to talk while holding drinks, so they come up with wine in a can. He's like motioning with his brandy hand, and it's just sloshing everywhere.
But then what happens after he takes a drink?
Doesn't he spit it out on Marge? He pours it on Marge somehow.
Well, he's sloshing it on her too, but then he takes a drink and like at the end of the scene, he just like face plants on the ground.
Oh yeah, that's right. But he's super drunk and he's like sloshing and swirling. Marge is like, "Stop swirling, Homer."
Listen, I worked long and hard for this place, and no one's going to take it away from me. Not you, not its rightful owner, not anybody. And another thing, if I have...
And that's where he passes out. And we actually, the great thing here, too, is the brandy glass drops and rolls and actually clinks on Homer's head, almost like it was a toast.
Yeah.
We also see the next day where Homer is apparently getting rid of that hangover by using Burns' phone. Operator, get me Thailand. T-I, and so on.
Homer, what are you doing?
Homer admits that he's calling everyone in Burns' address book, including the New York Yankees, and told them to bunt, and the Queen of England, and asked her how it's going. And this is where Marge is upset because she's like, we can't run up Burns' phone bill.
Just a second, Marge. Hello? Thailand? How's everything on your end? Uh-huh. That's some language you got there. And you talk like that 24/7, huh?
And that's where Marge can't handle it anymore. She snaps the phone and hangs up.
Hey!
Homer, you've got to stop pretending that this is your house. You're not a billionaire.
Jeez, way to burst my bubble, Marge.
All I'm saying is don't get too comfortable. Mr. Burns will be back tomorrow.
Marge, you're right. We do have to have a party.
I love these times where Homer just like hears what he wants to hear, pretty much. Like even like Marge is protesting, like no parties. Like what about a party? No parties, no shindigs, no keggers, no hootenannies, no mixers, no raves, no box socials.
Damn, and I look so good on that bike.
He's already apparently made invitations with him on an old-fashioned bicycle.
So in this scene, I believe this is the scene because I had a note about it. Did you see all the animal heads in the background?
No, I did not.
There were a bunch of animal heads, like there was a great white shark and all the animals you expect. But then when Homer moves, behind him on the wall, there was the head of a unicorn.
Oh, of course. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Funny stuff. We check back in with the Mayo Clinic to see how Burns is doing, and he basically tells his doctor that he wants to be tested for everything on this chart, which is entitled Diseases You Can Have. The doctor starts by trying to take blood, but the syringe just goes straight through Burns' arm. And I love Burns' response there. He's like, oh, I could have swore I know I saw some blood in there yesterday. We see Burns attached to a breath testing machine, which gives us probably the best visual in the entire episode because, like, it's doing the thing where, like, you have to blow into a tube and it causes bubbles to go up and they can kind of see, like, your lung capacity. Only in this case, after he got tired, the suction, like, pullback ended up pulling, like, his face into the tube. But instead of being concerned, the doctor just measured this as if this was the normal thing they were testing.
12 centimeters. Very good.
Yeah. Instead of a stair climber test, we see him on an escalator test, and he's just literally riding the escalator.
It's like 2 feet.
Yeah. And yeah, not going against the grain, like literally just following it. He takes like one step at the top, one step at the bottom. And finally, we see him going through a CAT scan, but unfortunately, we just immediately see a warning saying body jam in Sector 1, and they have to like pull him out of the cogs.
Stupid copier machines.
We cut back to Homer, who is actually now wearing the top hat around town, apparently, because he's at Moe's, who is sees a bunch of people inside the bar, the normal bar flies, but he comes in with his like top hat and fancy, new persona.
I think he drove Burns' car with his Fox seatbelt on too.
Yes, that's right.
Like
over
the top there,
the fox biting the tail, I think it was. He tells Mo he's having a party and he'll need 4 kegs of his finest imported sounding beer.
How about Tuborg, the beer of Danish kings?
Danish.
Now I can't sell you no beer until 2 p.m. on account of it's Sunday.
And this is where we get probably the most iconic visual because it's been made into a meme so many times. But this is the point where we actually see like the sundial, essentially, like the spot where the sun is coming through, and a line is written on the bar floor that says drinking time or when we can drink or whatever. And Lenny and Carl are like huddled by it, like waiting for it to approach.
We're just watching the sun move across the sky.
And yeah, it's like labeled drinking time, which is apparently 2 p.m.
When the kid's here, we can drink again.
Do they have a different time every day, or is it just that day that they have to wait?
It's Sunday, so
yeah.
It's later.
But like
time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what time can they start serving every other day?
Well, they're off work by the time it's time. So
yeah, yeah, true. That's a good point. But yeah, Homer is like, but I need that beer now.
Sorry, 2 p.m. Or you can steal a boat and sail out to international waters.
What's that? A theme park?
No, the ocean. Once you get 12 miles out, there's no laws at all. That's where they held the Tyson Secretariat fight.
Oh my God. The slaughter in the water.
Ooh, nice.
That was on the poster. That was me. So I had something. Oh yeah. So this is on the commentary where they talked about the fact that this is actually just not true. Nope. They actually did research international water law and stuff, and the truth of the matter is it's just very confusing and pretty vague. But it's definitely not the lawless land that they're describing it to be. But they did get into a really interesting conversation that I think in a funny way didn't age that well. Again, this conversation would have been happening somewhere around 2005 or 6, whenever, or maybe 6 or 7, because this is when the Simpsons movie was being made. Maybe that would be 07, 08. I'm blanking now on when that was happening, but somewhere in that mid 2000s range. They were having a conversation about, early on in The Simpsons, they would sometimes, do some fact checking for a joke to make sure that, they were at least on the right page. But because it was pre-internet, there really wasn't like that big of a fault in not doing it. But once the internet came around, they basically said that there was really no excuse to be wrong because it was so easy to do fact checking. And I think it's just kind of funny that we live in a day now where we live literally in the age of alternative facts. That's a coined phrase used by politicians when they basically want to lie and say that they're telling an alternative version of the truth. That's the era that we live in. So like that conversation, I found it very interesting to listen to, but at the same time, it like rubbed me the wrong way in an odd way. Cause I'm like, fact checking really isn't as easy as it used to be, because misinformation is just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, than actual facts now are online.
And it's just because the ease of use of social media and the internet right there. There's always 3 truths: your truth, my truth, and the actual truth. So,
and I would say that expands nowadays to there's more like 12 truths, because then you're going to have the people that think that your truth is a conspiracy. There's going to be the people that think my truth is a conspiracy. And then there's going to be the people that have made up the real truth and know the actual truth because it's all a conspiracy.
We're all terribly stupid. That's what the bottom line is.
But for the sake of this episode, international waters equals do whatever the hell you want.
Woohoo!
And this gets Homer excited because your rich Uncle Homer is going to throw the wildest box social the high seas have ever seen. And he walks out the door while everybody's just kind of like, But then he pops back in, and you're invited.
Yay! I like that he starts that off like referencing the Tyson Secretariat fight, where he's like, they were so drunk.
Yeah. Apparently, like, barfly gossip travels fast, because as they're trying to board the boat, Marge already knows what's happening, and she is like cutting them off, like, no, you are not going to destroy Mr. Burns' boat.
And when Homer just tries to reason with her, this is the only time that he's going to have this opportunity. It's now or never.
I think he says, like, what if I never have the chance to be a real billionaire?
Yeah.
And then Marge, like, actually has, like, a Simpsons sweet moment here where she's like, oh, homie, I don't love you because of your money. I love you because of the man you... And, like, she's interrupted as Lenny yells from the other boat ramp, like, hey, we can just board over here. And Homer just runs off. Yeah, he doesn't even listen to Marge finish her sentence. And she's very noticeably perturbed as the rest of the barflies join the boat or board the boat with Homer. And that actually brings us to the end of our second act. And once again, I want to point out that this second act also not that long, longer than the first act, But at this point in the episode, we're only 11 minutes and 39 seconds in. That second act was just barely over 6 minutes. Versus the first act was just barely over 5. So they have reserved us a lot of time for the third act.
Longer than the first act. That's the same thing your wife tells you when you ask about the last guy she was with.
I don't think that's going to work as your dad joke unless you wait 9 months.
Oh, but hey, Miles, why does Sherlock Holmes love Mexican restaurants?
Why?
Because that's where he gets good case ideas.
I like that. That's funny. That is how we're going to transition from our second act to our third act for some reason. We open up our third act with Captain Homer, and he's set in sail to hell. Honestly, the boat looks like it would be better off with hail damage because, as Marge points out, like he's driving the boat sideways, and he just literally knocks it into a jetty, which does set him straight, it seems, but like in a very disruptive way.
Did you see the name of the boat?
No, what was it?
Gone Fission.
Oh, nice. Love it. Because he made his he made his fortune with nuclear power.
I mean, that boat name's kind of a dad joke. If I would have waited 10 seconds, it would have set up perfectly.
Oh, so close.
Mm-hmm.
Carl is sitting there. I guess they don't have a like sunspot and a line because he's just having to ask, have we hit international waters yet? Because things are getting real ugly. And Mo is actually standing on top of a beer and he's like holding a bullwhip, cracking people away as the barflies are like desperately trying to get their drink. Mo's like, I can't sell you beer until we cross the line.
Legally, you could give us free beer.
And Mo whips Barney.
By the time they get all this set up and go, wouldn't it have just been past 2 o'clock?
They did a lot to make this happen.
Yeah.
I do like Lenny actually asked Mo for rubbing alcohol, which Mo does hand him, but then he's like trying to get it for his wounds, but he starts chugging it, so Mo has to whip the bottle out of his hands. And for some reason on IMDb, they felt it was necessary to list that rubbing alcohol is twice as toxic as ethanol, so consuming it will double the chances of harmful effects such as alcohol poisoning, and symptoms may include stomach pain, confusion, dizziness, slowed breathing, and in severe cases, coma and or death.
See, Mo knew all this, Miles. That's
why he was whipping him. Yeah, absolutely. Keeping him in line. Fortunately, though, the yacht has finally crossed the line. Homer declares, we made it, son. International waters, the land that law forgot.
Such a cool line.
This is a weird scene though, and they point this out on the commentary, but I also noticed it because it was like my first question was like, wait, what was illegal about the first boat? Because we cut to a bunch of boats that are also taking advantage of these lax sea laws. The first one is just a boat full of like beautiful bikini clad women dancing, seemingly not illegal. Every other boat, you have like cowboys literally shooting each other, like they're having like their own personal version of like Call of Duty, whatever that boat level
or
that
Westworld.
Yeah, or Westworld on a boat. We also see what is it? I think it's a bullfight and then a man marrying a cow.
Mm-hmm.
Marsh is like, wow, you can do anything out here. But seriously, what was illegal about the first boat? Just saying.
You don't know what was going on underneath.
That's fair.
The top side of the boat. Probably
that's fair, but arguably you wouldn't have to go out to international waters for that.
Arguably, but there's no law out there, so it's legal technically.
Fair.
By default.
The two greatest words in the English language. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I do like this joke. I know you did too, because Homer points out, that's right. See that ship over there? And they have a huge satellite dish on it. They're rebroadcasting Major League Baseball with implied oral consent, not express written consent. Or so the legend goes. So Homer is celebrating. There are no laws. They can do anything they want. And that makes, that like basically encourages Lenny to start kicking Homer in the shins. Grow up, Lenny. We cut back to the Mayo Clinic where we see the results for all of Burns' tests are in, and he's excited to hear it, frankly. He wants to hear the news.
Well, Doc, I think I did pretty well on my tests. You may shake my hand if you like.
Well, under the circumstances, I'd rather not.
Eh?
Mr. Burns, I'm afraid you are the sickest man in the United States. You have everything.
You mean I have pneumonia?
Yes.
Juvenile diabetes?
Yes.
Hysterical pregnancy?
A little bit, yes. You also have several diseases that have just been discovered in you.
I see. You sure you haven't just made thousands of mistakes?
Oh my God, I love that line. No, I'm afraid not.
This sounds like bad news.
Well, you think so, but it's all of your diseases are in perfect balance. Like, if you have a moment, I can explain.
Well...
And Burns is at the fucking Mayo Clinic for his own physical, and he checks his watch to see if he has time to hear the results. The doctor, he does grant permission, though, and the doctor actually pulls out a tiny little model door and some fuzzy balls with faces on them, and he points out that, you see, this door here is your body, and these are oversized novelty germs. And that's influenza, that's bronchitis, and this little cute one here, this cuddle bug is pancreatic cancer. And you see, here's what happens when they all try to get through the door at once. And he tries to, like, bunch them through, and they literally get stuck. Very Three Stooges-like. Move it, Chowderhead. We call it the Three Stooges syndrome.
So what you're saying is I'm indestructible.
Oh, no. In fact, even the slight breeze could turn you into...
Indestructible. And I have two things to say about this. First of all, why does the doctor have a toy door just sitting around? Like, that's not going to serve you any purpose in this. And I actually used this defense once in either elementary school or early middle school. We had a kid that was writing this big war epic book. He was just a really smart, genius kid in our class, and he was a very good writer. And he basically lets all his friends make countries, made up countries that you got to name yourself, and we were all in a war with each other in this book. And he'd go around and say, okay, this has happened. It was basically like playing Risk. This happened. How are you guys going to respond? What do you want to do? And at one point, one of the leaders in another country came after me and my buddy, and they injected me with some kind of disease. And I was like out of ideas. I was like, what, people were dying in this book. Like, countries had already been taken over. We were one of the last ones left. And he asked me what I wanted to do in response. And I was like, well, what they don't know is I have diabetes. So if they inject me with another drug in some weird way, if they didn't know everything about me, wouldn't all the diseases just kind of cancel each other out? And he just sat there and looked at me for a while. And he goes, you know what? I think that works. And he wrote that down. And we ended up winning the war.
Nice. Way to go, man.
This defense actually works.
Yeah, good to know.
100% proven.
I feel bad because I just had a conversation with somebody not that long ago, and they referenced this, and I wish I could remember who it was because it was a great conversation, and I'm just blanking, but I just talked about this very example recently, and yeah, somebody brought it up as basically like just a scene that they loved talking about.
It's a fantastic, indestructible.
Yeah, totally. I'm slowly realizing I think it's I told somebody I'd invite them on for this episode, and I totally fucked that up. I'll have to figure it out and make it up to them. Oh well, moving on. Can't do much about that now.
We have Three Stooges syndrome. That's why we forgot. I'm sorry.
I mentioned earlier that there's like a lot of iconic like parts from this episode that like I forgot that were there, like the line Britney Spears appearance in general. And this is another one I think that is often referenced or that I just fondly remember, and it's just the simple joys of a monkey knife fight. I've seen this image, like basically the guys are just like all surrounding around these two monkeys trying to stab each other. And this is where we get the first appearance of the Coast Guard, who I believe is taunting them at this point, but Bart has a plan. He's going to basically taunt them back with a bullhorn. Hey, Coast Guard, try to stop us now, you lousy Americans.
We can't hear you. Come 300 feet closer.
Nice try. You're not going to nail us.
But we just want to party.
Oh, really? Then play some rock music. And this gets Homer excited. Come on, Bart! The Coast Guard's covering the dubs.
And they aren't actually playing music. Like the dude on the speaker is literally beatboxing it, basically.
But it works. It gets everybody going. Who's the greatest millionaire in the world?
You are!
And Homer is like really loving this moment, which of course means that it's about to go so terribly.
But hold up. They've been calling him billionaire the whole episode, and in this instance, they say millionaire. Has Homer spent so much money that he's downgraded Burns? Because there is a future episode about how Burns is no longer in the billionaire club.
I remember that. Yeah, that's true. But this is all the dancing, singing, and bullhorning have drawn not only the Coast Guard's attention, but also some pirates. They are looking through a spyglass, and they say, "Looks like another homosexual party boat. They always have such nice things.
Perhaps we should pay them a visit.
A deadly visit.
Well, let's just play it by ear."
Yeah. Unaware that Homer is now moments away from everything turning into a disaster, he's actually just living up the life and having the greatest time, and he doesn't even notice when the pirates start to board the boat.
I love the animation that happens here while he's dancing on the deck too, with all of his friends in the background, and then it pans to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it pans back, instead of his friends being there, it's all the pirates. And he notices, but then he's like, okay, well, this happened once. Let me just do the same thing again. So then he dances back the other way so that the camera pans away, thinking that when it pans back, his friends will be back. But when he pans back the second time, the pirates are still there.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was no lines at all in that moment, but it's just so funny to me.
Visually very funny.
Yeah.
We also see that the friends of Homer's have now been tied up in a net, essentially, and are being poked with sticks so that they're basically human pinatas at this point, collecting wallets, coins, and unfortunately for Mo, even his bus pass.
Oh,
that he's very
my bus
attached
pass!
To.
They have my bus pass!
No, Homer. Homer actually starts to yell for the pirates. Yell for help from the Coast Guard. Help, pirates!
Navy SEALs are on the way.
Oh, bless you.
How about a tactical nuclear strike?
Oh, that would be just... Oh, you're just yanking my chain, aren't you?
Perhaps this foghorn will answer your question.
That's so mean.
And it's not an actual foghorn. It's the Coast Guard making the noise again. They're taking him to Hidden Pirate Island, though, Miles. That sounds exciting.
That's true. Yeah, you can't really ask for more, honestly. It's the adventure they were hoping for. The pirates actually order Homer into the net, and he actually starts to try to fight, and he knocks 4 different parrots off of this pirate's shoulder before grabbing one of the knives from one of the fighting monkeys. But Homer tries to climb a rope, and he immediately starts sliding down and gets rope burn. Then he crashes to the deck and gets a Charlie horse.
That's what would happen to me if this is I feel you, Homer. I feel you so much right now.
It really is a comedy of errors and just the worst timing possible. He's holding the knife in his mouth, trying to massage the Charlie horse.
He doesn't try to cut the rope either with a knife. He's gonna fight the pirates with this little tiny knife.
And then he ends up cutting his lips, and then he ends up dropping the knife into his left hand where it sticks. So basically, he beat himself as he was trying to fight these pirates, and he does in fact end up in the net.
He goes in the net, and they all just look at him and shake their heads. Yes,
some party, Homer.
Shut up, net face.
Hey, you're in the net too.
I said, shut up, net face.
We're all gonna die, and I never got to taste cantaloupe.
You didn't miss much. Honeydew is the money melon.
Arr, and now we will cut you loose. Oh, this is not Captain McAllister. What an interesting episode that would make. I'm not going to attempt to do this captain's accent. He just says, and now we will cut you loose for liability purposes. It is the ocean that will kill you, not us.
It was shark-infested waters, too, which that doesn't come into play at all.
There's another really funny joke here, because when they
messed
hit,
up
they actually,
joke.
it's dark as hell. But the net actually is floating on the sea, and Mo is surprised by this. Hey, what do you know? It floats.
That was my plan all along. Now relax and let the currents take us home.
But Bart points out, what about the people on bottom?
They're the greatest heroes of all. Hey! Something's clawing at my leg. Okay, it stopped. Because you only see the top half of the net. So
there's people that were down at the bottom that are essentially clawing to death, clawing at the ankles, trying to save themselves, but not managing. It'll be a real weird episode next time we see a convention and only half of Springfield is there. We cut back to the mansion where Marge and Lisa have taken the opposite approach of Homer and Bart. They are actually like cleaning Burns' mansion, trying to get
the clone.
What's that?
The little Burns in a jar. It was like a little clone.
Oh, the clone. I thought you said clowns. Yeah, there was like 4 Burns in jars.
Creepy.
One of them was a clown, actually. No. Marge specifically says to Lisa or vice versa about how like they just got the old person smell out of the house. And Burns and Smithers arrived back home.
Smithers, old chum, there's nothing like coming home with a clean bill of health. Oh,
thank you.
Sorry about your news.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Do they know how many eggs laid in your brain?
I prefer not to know, frankly. 1 is too many.
I feel like
this is my favorite line with Burns right here. Of the whole
I feel
thing.
like maybe they started with just the sorry about your news and the thank you, sir. And at first they might have just left it alone right there. But then maybe when on the playback, they're like, well, we don't know if that means he has cancer. We don't know what's going on. We got to like bring it back and make it a little funnier. So then it's eggs being laid in your brain. That
could be. They didn't have any commentary on that, but that wouldn't surprise me either.
Mm-hmm.
But this next line, when Burns like opens the door again after Marge and Lisa have like spent all this time cleaning the old man smell out.
Oh, the foul stench of youth.
But then we get him. He's like going through an inventory of all the things that he was expecting to happen that didn't.
The Ming vase is untouched, not knocked over.
It was on a narrow column too, an unnecessarily narrow column.
Rare coins not inserted into the nearby vending machine, which is brilliant.
And basically, yeah, all these things that you would be so tempting to either Homer or Bart or both. But that's when Homer busts in and is like, Mr. Burns, I'm sorry, but pirates stole your yacht.
And then we have the losing monkey crawling in with like his eye bandaged and everything. This monkey's going to need most of your skin, Smithers.
And Smithers just is like, oh. But Burns actually takes the yacht news like really well.
Yeah.
Like he's like, that's actually something was bound to happen.
Yep.
Very just like, whatever, I'm good. I have other yachts probably. But yeah, he was also very sincere with this monkey. I'm blanking on the monkey's name, and that's making me really sad because
yeah,
very
I forgot
funny.
too.
But yeah, he was very, very compassionate, way more compassionate to this monkey than he would be to Smithers, who he's going to literally take the skin from Smithers to heal this monkey.
That's the joke.
We cut back to the Simpsons back in their own home. Actually, I believe for the first time in this episode. And Lisa points out, it's good to be home.
I don't know. After living like a billionaire, this place is kind of a dump.
No, it's not so bad. Here we can spit on the floor.
Art, stop that. Now, we may not have antique furniture or priceless artwork, but we have everything we need right here.
That's right. Just because we're not rich doesn't mean that we don't have. I can't even finish. I want to be rich.
And that's when we cut to credits.
And I love this because Homer continues to cry over the credits as we see all the names of the producers, writers, and staff. And he's like, I want to be rich like these guys. And look at all these rich people here. Not as rich as they should be, of course, but still rich.
And then doesn't Dan's name pop up? And that's when he goes, well, that guy's not.
Yeah. And then the Gracie Logos thing comes up with the woman that goes, shh. And he's like, don't shush me, rich bastard.
It sounds like it's one solid cut the whole way through the credits of him crying and doing that too.
Sure, it is.
Like again with Dan, like you expect that, but like it's still really, really well done.
It's fantastic, and that is the way that we end our episode. It's like a smooth transition straight from the end of the third act, right into the credits, and it's fantastic work by Dan as usual. Just solid Homer. That's where he's the best, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But that does bring us to the end of the Mansion family. Richie, was there anything else that you or that book of yours want to talk about before we call it a day?
I feel like this is one of those episodes where the ending was very, very abrupt. Like they had them in this nets with the pirates, and you expect something to happen, but then they just kind of drop them in the water and they go with like a super dark joke, and all of a sudden they I guess they floated back to shore. So I felt like the ending was a little abrupt.
There's a lot of loose ends left there too. Like we literally just killed some people, and Burns was like, "Yep, whatever. You lost my boat. No big deal."
Yeah, exactly. So it was an abrupt ending, but like honestly, I wasn't not looking forward to this episode, but like it wasn't really high on my list. But this had a lot of really funny moments in it. So this is one of those moments where like you mentioned the drinking time meme and stuff like that. I forgot a lot of the stuff that was in this one, so I was really glad and surprised that it was much funnier than I remembered it being.
This is one that by name and even by the stock image on IMDb, I didn't really recall, but 100% agree. Like as soon as I rewatched it back, I was like, oh shit, this is a great episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Well, that is going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and supporting us, listening, contributing on Patreon. I forgot what it was called for a second. All the awesome things that you guys do to support the show and that we appreciate so much.
Yep. To piggyback off Miles, we love each and every one of you. Thank you for listening. As usual, you can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. That's all over social media. Again, posting stand-up constantly. The dude is back on the scene and sometimes in VR even. So make sure you check him out any way you can. Everybody buy Oculus Quest 2 so you can party with us and play games with us and watch Miles.
On Oculus.
Yeah, there you go. You can follow me at @thewiz_kid23 who occasionally puts an Oculus headset on. You can follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
Make sure you come back and join us again next week where we are going to be taking a break from The Simpsons to talk about Best Darn Everything that we haven't decided what we'll be covering yet. Oh, wait, yeah, I do know what it is, but it's a surprise and I'm not telling you. And then we'll be back the week after that with the episode Saddle Sore Galactica.
I see. I'm sure we'll make thousands of mistakes.
Then 1,000 more. But until next time, be cromulent to each other.